Healing is not about getting rid of something or about fixing ourselves. Healing is about integrating parts of ourselves and creating new habits, new ways of behaving that can help us feel healthier, stronger, more confident, and more aligned with our decisions. So when I hear people going, oh, maybe I just need to go on that ayahuasca ceremony, or maybe I just need to take mushrooms, or maybe I just need to go to Reiki or kinesiology, or maybe I just need to, I've already done therapy, I don't need to do that anymore. I've done all these things, I've done somatic healing, and I'm not healed. Now, the reason why we think that way is because what we don't realize is that when we are working through default coping mechanisms, we are actually working through an addictive tendency, whether it is people pleasing, self-abandonment, arguing, blaming ourselves and collapsing. So that's like procrastinating, shutting down, or feeling really quite anxious and depressed. Whenever in conflict, we might put our protective walls up, so we might flight or get away, or we may not be able to lean in and be open to connecting. Whatever the default is, we all have different ways that we cope, and it will manifest in different ways too. Those are addictive tendencies. They're our default mechanisms that are trying to protect us and meet a need. Once we understand what the default mechanism is, so we've got to get real with ourselves about the default mechanism, why we have that. We've got to look at the past. We've got to look at our family dynamics and upbringing. And then what need it's actually trying to meet. What we will find is that our default coping mechanisms will create an unwanted outcome because we're trying to manipulate our way to meet that need. We're not going directly for it. We don't do this always on a conscious level. Some people do it on a conscious level. But what is happening is we're like, I want this thing, like on a subconscious level, and this is how I will get it. This is my default way of getting it. And it might not necessarily be a healthy way. So if it's an addictive tendency, it means we can't just cut it from our lives. We can't just get rid of it. We can't just stop doing it, stop thinking about it. We need to process what's happening. We need to get awareness about what's happening and understanding from a non-judgmental perspective. So an observation of it rather than I shouldn't be doing this, I'm a terrible person. That's part of processing it. And then once we start to observe it, what we realize is I'm going to relapse. So just like addiction in general, we relapse. And this is something that, I've been working on. All the people in the world have some sort of addictive tendency, default mechanism that is not the healthiest, whether it's overeating, whether it's over-exercising, whether it's having walls up and not being able to connect with people. Whatever it is, we all have something. And for me, what it was is this deep fear of loneliness. I didn't know I had that. I didn't even realize I had that. I would be given feedback around it and I'd push it away. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'd get defensive. So that was part of my coping mechanism. And before I realized I had that, I was making like all these decisions, trying to fix and do. I was a doer, and I'd try to fix things. I'd go from one city to the next, trying to, move locations, move jobs, go from one relationship to the next. It's like trying to fix this thing inside me that I didn't realize I had and why I had it. And what it was is this deep fear of loneliness because I had suffered neglect when I was younger. And this neglect was a disconnect with people around me. Grew up in a really chaotic, loud Greek family, but didn't feel connected. I felt quite like a little tag along, and I didn't really know myself. I just did what everyone else was doing, and I would sit and hold space for my family members, but I didn't feel like I was seen or heard myself. So I was heavily neglected. So then what happened is I tried to meet my needs for attention and for connection and for love and all those things in very unhealthy ways, because I didn't know, firstly, how to do it in a healthy way, and it wasn't shown to me. And I also didn't know that I was making certain decisions from this place. It was unconscious, had no idea that that was happening. I had my sister tell me, you go from one relationship to the next, and I got defensive and was like, no, but I'm okay with being alone. Like, I had told myself this belief that I was okay with it. So I wasn't in reality. And it wasn't until I hit a crisis point. And this crisis point is where I realized I had been doing, and I'd been in different relationships, and I just wasn't happy. I realized that all this doing, this external way of being, just wasn't working out. So I thought maybe I needed to be medicated. I didn't know much about inner work and anything like that. So I went to the doctors, and they suggested, they asked me, are you happy in your work, or are you happy in your relationship? And I said no to both. And she said to me, well, I'm not going to give you medication if you're not happy in these spaces. This is, you need to change those things. And I had this sense of relief, because it gave me permission, which is interesting even that in itself, to that it was possible that I could make these changes. And then she explained to me childhood trauma, and it all just fell into place. I realized at that point that my childhood had impacted me, whereas before that point, I was under this belief that I had a really good childhood, that my parents worked really hard for us. They put food on the table, they dressed us, they gave us opportunities, that anytime we needed something, they were there. And I thought, well, I had a really good childhood. And then what I realized on an emotional level is how neglected I was. And so from that point on, this was probably 10 years ago now, from that point on, I was starting to unfold and make decisions that were in alignment with understanding that. And this doesn't mean, though, I got healed or fixed anything, or that I came out of my addiction. I didn't even know I had an addiction at that point. And it wasn't until I studied a year of clinical psychology, and that wasn't for me, and then I found psychotherapy. Finding psychotherapy made me realize how important the inner work is. I didn't even realize how much I'd been running from the inner work. Like, I'd been making all these decisions from my external understanding of the world. And that's why it wasn't working, because I'm ambitious. I'll go for what I want. I'm a doer, right? So in a balanced way, it's a positive thing. I can get things done in alignment. But when it's out of balance, then I'm making decisions that are out of alignment, which means they don't give me the outcome that I want, and it feels deflating when that happens. I feel despair and powerless and all the things, because I'm making decisions from the wrong place. So doing this, as I started to realize all this, and then I realized my addiction for relationships, I was like, I can't be alone. I'm so fearful of being alone. And I was making decisions from this fear. And, I was hurting other people in the process. I hurt myself in the process. And as I was coming out of this addictive tendency of making decisions from this place, I had a breakup. And I started to be with myself. Like, I had to face myself. I had to face being alone. The very thing that I feared the most, I was facing being alone. And this is where the turning point happened for me. This is where I started to make decisions more in alignment, not completely in alignment, because that's not how it works. And this is why healing doesn't work just as go here, do this, get rid of this, and then we're good, right? It doesn't work that way, because it works in the way of we become aware of why we make certain decisions through self-reflection. If I can't self-reflect because I'm judging myself, or I'm blaming out or blaming myself, then what is happening is I'm getting stuck and I'm continuing the same cycle, and it gets more and more abusive for myself and other people. The only way out of this, the only way to start making decisions that are more in alignment is through self-reflection, owning your shit. As soon as you can do this, and as soon as I could do this, I started to make decisions more in alignment. Did this mean I didn't make mistakes? 100% no. I made so many mistakes along the way. The one thing though that kept following me, the thread that kept following me, is that it was like I am almost in alignment with some of those decisions. So it was like, so I moved up here and I moved in with someone really quickly that I thought I knew and I didn't, and it didn't end well. And so that was a decision that was half in alignment and then half out of alignment, because I wanted to move to the Sunshine Coast. I knew I loved the weather and the beach, and I love this place. This place is for me. This is in alignment with me and my lifestyle. But the person I moved in with was out of alignment. So this is how it works. We start to understand ourselves and bring awareness in, and we make decisions. In saying that, there was some things, and this is why I've got my decision-making course, because there were some things that I could have done, which I don't look back on through judgment, just self-reflection, that understanding the wounding that I have, the fear of being alone. There was another wounding that was there too. I'm not capable on my own. And this was a lie, because I've done so many things where I'm very capable. And so I was moving in with this person for the wrong reasons. And this is why I've created my decision-making course, because as soon as you can start to differentiate between the wounding and the belief systems that we're making decisions from, and then the more aligned place, it might not be perfect every time, but we're going to start to make decisions in alignment. So every time I have done this, maybe there's feedback along the way and made mistakes and self-reflected, I have then got myself into a better situation after it, because I've made different choices. So I moved out of that home with that person, I got my own place, and then I kept going and kept going. I have really refined the way that I make decisions now, and this is why I share it with you, because I know I can see the mind of mine that goes into fantasy with people and situations and environment, and so I don't see the reality of who they are and what the environment's like. And I've got such a deep understanding of that now that I know how we can access that part of us. So what I'm saying is, as soon as you become aware of why you are the way you are, why your coping mechanisms are there, the people pleasing, the doer, the high achiever, the performer, the self-abandonment, the addiction to certain things, external validation, sex addiction, shopping addiction, alcohol addiction, relationship addiction, whatever it is, we become aware of it, and then to be able to start making decisions differently, because the awareness is the first step, and then making decisions differently is the next step. You are going to have resistance along the way, and the reason why we have resistance along the way, there'll be a part that's like, yes, I want this, I want a healthier me, I want a better me, I want to be able to set boundaries, feel powerful, feel confident. And then there's going to be and for me it was, I want to be capable and feel confident in that, and I want to be independent and not rely upon being in a relationship to be okay. There's going to be resistance, because there's a part of us that has relied on that for our whole lives. And I would imagine if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, this is who we were, this is our identity. So the resistance is going to be there. So there's a part that's like, yes, let's do this, let's evolve, let's be amazing. And then there'll be this part that's like, I don't want to do that. That was not safe when we were younger, and thinks that we were back when we were younger. So we've got to be really committed to this process, because you will make mistakes along the way. You will relapse along the way. And if you judge yourself on that and collapse and say, well, I'm not doing any more inner work, that doesn't work, I've already done enough, and collapse in that, you will stay stuck in these cycles. If you can rise above, and then rather than double down on your coping mechanism and go back to it, double down on exploring and observing, on therapy, on inner work, on going into the opposite direction to what your default wants to do. Because this is the only way that you can start to meet your goals in alignment. And it will happen. It's just not as easy as somatic healing, going on a workshop away, ayahuasca ceremony, taking mushroom, whatever it is that we think we just need to do and that will fix us. That's not how it works. So it is a lifelong experience where we go, okay, we've got this default, and all of us will have a different voice, a different default around it. There'll be thoughts that are attached to it, and there will be behaviors that are also attached to it. We are going to be, for the rest of our lives, this is the reality of trauma. For the rest of our lives, we are working with those processes to identify more with our higher self, our evolution, the part of us that wants to thrive, and identify less with the part that wants to collapse, that wants to fight and protect and stay in that space and stay in that identity. Here's the consequence if we don't. If we double down on that identity, the defender, the arguer, the person that blames out, the person that doesn't take responsibility, the person that can't self-reflect, the person that can't go beyond their shame, doubling down on that is then what happens is you become more of that. So you amplify this person. I'm angry now. I'll be rageful in 2-3 years time. I'll be lonely. I will be all the things that I fear, that because I'm this thing, I will be more of that thing. So that's the consequence. And I've seen it. I see it often actually, where people double down on default, going back to their default behaviors, and it doesn't end well. There's health problems that come from it. There's relationship breakdowns, there's loneliness, there's so many things that happen as a consequence of that. And all I've seen when people go, okay, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to self-reflect, I'm going to learn, I'm not going to collapse in the times when I need to really step up, level up and rise up. All I've seen are really positive things. Is it easy? No way. It's the hardest thing that you'll do in your life. Is it a better life? Absolutely. Since I have been on this journey, this experience, and I became aware, and some call it awakened, it wasn't like this spiritual awakening, became aware, my decisions are more in alignment. I have a really successful counselling business. I have worked in some really incredible places like a mental health retreat. I have worked with incredible people. I have met incredible people. I have a very close friendship that I absolutely love. I'm making more money than I ever have before. I'm making it in alignment with who I truly am. And I am feeling more confident, solid, grounded, and present in myself. It wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I did. There were times where I moved houses, and being independent on my own, I was living on a mattress on the floor. So I didn't get here from it being smooth sailing. I got here because I went, okay, what do I need to do next to get the bed ready? And what do I need to do next for my work? Okay, I'm not going to judge myself for this. This is how I got here. And yes, you can do it too, as long as you're willing to self-reflect, keep rising up.